this is NLAC Gaming and Podfic. Welcome to my channel, and I hope you enjoy the video. In Another's Footsteps, Chapter 1, Izuku's Crappy Day. Summary. There's a headache going around, except it's not just a headache. This is written by Shodaizawa Podfic, Chaos, Aussie Owl, Gremlin _time, Cat's Trio, Onyx Moon, Pikachu Your Foods, Ray of Frost, and the Brain IQ. Let's start with the chapter. Izuku was having a bad day, 'cause of course he was. He was Izuku Midoriya. Izuku, problem child, trouble magnet, aggressively nice, will slam your head into the ground and make you his best friend in the span of 3 days, Midoriya. Why would it make sense for him to have a normal day? The moment he woke up, he knew it was gonna be a crappy day. As soon as he looked at his phone, he had hundreds of notifications from the Quirkless community group chat. Someone had leaked the server invite and started inviting Quirkist a-holes. Frickin' great. Just what he wanted at the wonderful hour of 4 a.m. 'Cause he just loves getting woken up by hundreds of notifications telling him to kill himself. It's middle school all over again. Lovely. He's running on 2 hours of sleep and 5 mugs of Death Wish coffee. He wants another one. A part of his mind is screaming at him that that's a bad idea. You will literally die. But frick the responsible voice in his head. He's a grown 5'5" teenager and can do whatever the crap he wants. He uses the small bit of energy he has to try and ignore Ida, who's about to have an aneurysm for mixing a Monster Energy drink with his Death Wish coffee. Ida can chill the frick out. It's not like he's gonna die. Not that he's complaining if he does. His new creation, Death Wish Coffee 2, Electric Boogaloo, or because his premature death coffee, to be more realistic, was the full name of the Monster Energy plus Death Wish coffee potion for those who aren't daft enough to figure that out, is the most important thing in his life at this current moment. Ida finally begins lecturing. Midoriya, it is not healthy. I do not condone this amount of caffeine in one day, let alone at... Izuku just tunes him out. Not intentionally, because he would never intentionally ignore his friends, especially not after finally getting some people who actually tolerate him. Even if he does have a quirk now, if they knew he was quirkless, they would never accept him, never tolerate him. Nobody would be this nice if All Might hadn't been there when he was drowning, when he was dying. He grit his teeth and squeezed his eyes shut before shivering slightly, placing his mug down on impulse to not drop it. He hears someone drag their feet against the floor. He snaps back to reality and opens his eyes to track whoever was entering the kitchen, turning back into Ida's lecture for the meantime. He makes brief eye contact with Kachan before looking down at the ground nervously, earning a scoff from the blonde-haired teen. He turns his attention back to Ida. You are a hero in training and should be keeping a a healthy body for your training this afternoon. You should know better as a... Jog it. Bakugo, that's not safe. Do not encourage your classmate. Ida turns to scold Kachan as well, only to be met with a glare that screams, "Try me." Huh? Why? Izuku rudely interrupts Ida, who tried to apologize. So, Four Eyes can faint and shut the frick up. Bakugo opens the fridge and grabs the dorm shared carton of eggs out of the second shelf of the fridge, eyebrows furrowed in annoyance. Do it! Holy crap! Our Patch Kids, Todoroki-kun, where did you come from? Izuku yelps in surprise, whipping around to stare at Todoroki incredulously. I'll get you custom-made Eraserhead merch and put your hands up radio merch with my dad's credit card if you do. Izuku chugs it. Ida promptly faints. There's a resounding scream that echoes throughout the dorms when Uraraka walks into the kitchen at the exact moment Ida hits the floor. The sound of doors slamming open is heard as people come rushing towards the shriek. It took 10 minutes out of everyone's morning waking Ida up. Aizawa-sensei was especially done with Class 1A's collective crap. Izuku didn't miss the look of concern flash across his teacher's face when he noticed the empty Monster can and Death Wish coffee grounds. His eyes were obviously playing tricks on him, though, because nobody has or ever will care about him. It's around 7:22 now, and Aizawa allows himself to draw out a long sigh. Problem child. I expect everyone to be on time, despite the circumstances. As a hero, you must learn to be flexible. The taller man looms over the class with an expectant gaze. Izuku shifts uncomfortably, causing the man to soften his gaze slightly before heading upstairs to grab his capture weapon. Izuku heads to the door, hoping to get a quick jog in since he couldn't earlier since Ida decided to scold him. As soon as he looked down at his shoes, all hopes of jogging that morning were lost. The paint was chipped down to where there was only small bits of green paint left, and the color red was apparent. What a great day. Not. He quickly walks to the arts and crafts cabinet in the common area, borrowing some black paint from Hagakuri's section since she had said she didn't mind. He opens the new drawer and digs through it to find a big paintbrush that has dried up green paint from last time. The greenette gets to work immediately. Grabbing his shoes, he props them up on his knee before painting over the red and bits of green. Aizawa-sensei picks that exact moment to come up to the door and to leave. Izuku looks at the hobo of a man with a dumbfounded expression. See you in class, sensei. Izuku grins up at him. Izuku swears he saw an inkling of worry spread across his teacher's face for a moment before it returned to his nonchalant gaze. Of course, kid. Aizawa burrows his chin into his scarf, returning his hands to his pockets from when he seemed to be texting someone and walking out of Heights Alliance. Izuku smiles at himself and begins painting the other shoe. Maybe it will be a good day. He was proven wrong immediately. All third and second years were in the hallways because of some tests they needed to study for. Their teachers' classrooms were locked, meaning there was a crowd in front of the door, in the way of his path to the homeroom. Maybe he will take the hackers on the Quirkless group chat's advice. He hates crowds with every bone in his body. He hates being touched. He hates loud noises. So ultimately, him and crowds are not a good mix. He feels his breathing pick up when he is pushed into a massive group of students. The noise blares like sirens from every angle. His hands shake as he brings them closer to his chest. Izuku tries to focus on the floor, or the stains on the walls, or the light that always seems to be flickering, or anything. He grasps desperately for something to focus on, or preferably an escape route. His eyes flick around the room, but the moment seems to never end. Until it does. He finds himself wrapped in a warm embrace by a taller figure. Izuku is slowly inched away from the crowd and is kept wrapped tight by two lanky arms. He can't help but allow the tears that had been building up fall. He burrows his eyes into the mystery person's shoulder. He will deal with the repercussions later, but for now, he just needs to calm down. He tries tuning out the noise, but there's just too much. Then it goes silent. He feels headphones getting placed gently on his head. The noise instantly being shut out. Around 5 minutes later, maybe more, Izuku calmed down, and holy frick, he probably looked stupid right now. This is embarrassing. He had been crying into whoever just randomly hugged him and had been clinging to his leather jacket for 5 minutes straight. He sits in silence for a moment as he gathers his courage to take a step back and look up at the mystery man, who just so happened to be his second favorite hero, next to Eraserhead, of course, Present Mike. Izuku slides the headphones to the man had lent him onto his neck before apologizing profusely, slipping the headset off and offering it back to the taller man who was knelt in front of him. Sorry, I don't do well with crowds. Sorry for wasting your time, Mike-sensei. Izuku smiles shakily at Present Mike, who smiles back reassuringly. To Izuku's surprise, the teacher takes the offered headphones before promptly placing them back around Izuku's neck. Don't worry about it, little listener. Eraser's the same way. There's nothing wrong with it. No need to apologize, buddy. Present Mike ruffles his green curls, and Izuku was surprised to find himself leaning into the touch. It's comforting. Comfort, a foreign word to Izuku. When he realizes he had just unintentionally, who is he kidding, that crap was on purpose, leaned into Present Mike's hand, he blushes in embarrassment. You should get to class, kiddo. Eraser's kind of a grump when it comes to attendance. I can walk you and get you a pass if you'd like. His teacher stands, knees popping as he does so. The man offers his hand to Izuku, who looks like he had just had a 5-tier mental breakdown. And let's be honest, he did. Izuku hesitantly takes the offered hand before walking alongside the man to Izuku's homeroom class with Aizawa. He has never been late before. His teachers at Aldera did not tolerate tardiness. He had learned that the hard way after being late to homeroom because some quirkist butthole had stopped Izuku on the streets that morning, illegally using his quirk to melt the concrete below Izuku and spit slurs at the greenette for 30 minutes straight. Wow. These quirkist a-holes are so productive with their time. I'm sure they are getting so much done in their lives while being unemployed. Wow. Okay, wow. Izuku needs to get some sleep. He's hearing himself now. Before he knows it, they're in front of the doors to 1A. He can see Aizawa glaring at Mike through the door window when he goes to open the door for the two. But his gaze immediately softens when he sees Izuku fidgeting behind the blonde with prominent red puffy eyes and tear stains down his cheeks. If Izuku had Mike's headphones on for the rest of Aizawa's homeroom class, it was nobody's business. Not even yours, Ida. So respectfully, frick off and let him listen to Egotist in Peace, which is currently playing on this recording of Put Your Hands Up Radio. By the time lunchtime rolls around, Izuku is wiped. He is mentally drained and freaking exhausted. And just so tired. Sue him. Kami fricked him over today. Most of all, though, he is starving. He didn't eat yesterday because he had training with All Might immediately after school, and it dragged on into late hours of the night. Speaking of which, he was sore as frick. Izuku sighs. It's better to just not acknowledge the pain. And isn't that just the story of his life, ignoring all the pain? What the frick ever. He draws out a long puff and quickens his walk to the cafeteria. He doesn't feel like another panic attack today. Thank you. Izuku slips Present Mike's headphones back over his ears, taking a deep breath, bracing himself to enter. Problem child. A familiar, raspy voice announces their presence behind him, letting out a small huff as he nears him. Sensei, are you also getting lunch? Izuku looks up at Aizawa curiously, tilting his head slightly. No, I'm bringing you lunch. Aizawa lifts the bento box he's holding into the air, displaying it to the younger boy. You can come eat in the teacher's lounge if you want to, kid. His teacher offers, burrowing his chin into his scarf. Izuku appreciates the offer. He really does. And as much as he wants to get away from the cafeteria, he would hate to disrupt his teacher's lunch. That's all right, Sensei. I wouldn't want to disturb yours or anyone else's lunch break. He smiles apologetically at the black-haired man. Thanks for offering, though, Sensei. Izuku bows slightly apologetically. Honestly, he really shouldn't have taken him up on the offer, but being the only student in a room full of teachers honestly scares the crap out of him. He doesn't have good experience with teachers, and despite the kindness shown from the UA staff, he is still hesitant to trust them. He doesn't want to fall into a false sense of security and get hurt in the end. Aizawa places his hand on top of Izuku's head as he bows, ruffling it briefly. Izuku stands up straight when the hobo of a man places his hand back to his side. Kid, none of the teachers will care. I'm sure Murray will be thrilled to talk to you. The older man huffs in fond exasperation. If you don't mind, then sure. Are you sure nobody will mind? He's just double checking, just in case. Kid, I just said nobody will mind, problem child. Aizawa pinches the bridge of his nose incredulously. If you say so, Sensei. Izuku smiles thankfully to himself, taking the offered bento and falling behind his gruff teacher when he gestures for Izuku to follow. Peeking inside the bento to see the contents inside, from what he can see, there's rice balls, chicken bites, and a jelly pouch. He can't help but smile to himself once more. Maybe his teachers really are different this year. It doesn't take them long to arrive in front of the staff lounge. Izuku can hear the teachers talking through the door, along with utensils clattering against dishes. He finds himself itching behind Aizawa nervously, unsure about some of the teachers in the room. Izuku is now almost completely hidden behind his tired teacher, who is dragging his sleeping bag across the floor. As people do. He looks over at the first person he sees, Vlad King. The man kind of scares Izuku. There's a threatening edge to his tone and stony glare. Aizawa and him have some ongoing feud or something. He wants to ask why, but he's kind of scared too. Vlad reminds Izuku of his old physics teacher, cold gaze and sharp tone. Well, Vlad kind of has the cold shoulder vibe going on with everyone, unlike his physics teacher, who seemed to have it out for only Izuku. Overall, Izuku is not the biggest Vlad King fan. Of course, he would never tell anyone that. That would be so insulting. Izuku shifts under Vlad King's gaze. He speeds up his walk for a moment to move closer to Aizawa, averting his gaze to the next teacher. Hound Dog. He knows the man has a good heart. He's the school therapist, after all, but he scares the living crap out of Izuku. Although his judgment is mostly clouded from when Hound Dog had yelled, more like barked, at him for fighting Gentle Criminal and La Brava. He smiles sheepishly at the man, and Izuku thinks he smiled back. He doesn't know how hard to tell when they're a dog. He looks over at the next person in the room who is cooing at Izuku like he just pulled the biggest frickin' puppy dog eyes, which he doesn't do. We don't talk about the time he wanted to wear Aizawa's scarf. He can be very persuasive. Midnight looks like she's about to fly across the room and pinch his cheeks. Midnight is kind of a blur. He gets a bit uncomfortable with her 18-plus persona, but he also knows the persona helps with her quirks requirements. He had also overheard her complaining to Mike Sensei about the Hero Commission not allowing her to change it. So he supposes he shouldn't judge how he can feel about her based on her hero persona. And beneath her flirty facade, Izuku notices she's a caring person and would even be described as motherly. He loves her enthusiasm. It helps make classes a bit more fun, but he hates her whip, hates the crackling sound it makes. There's a resounding crackle as the sweet scent of caramel fills the room, the smoke spreading, the sweet smell across the room. Izuku used to love that scent when he was young and vulnerable. Now he loathed it. He hated the feeling of warm blood trickling down his face. Izuku shifted his attention to present Mike, not wanting to go down that road in front of all these people. Present Mike is one of Izuku's favorite teachers. He's enthusiastic and always hypes up 1A before teaching. The man is loud, but Izuku can get around it since it's the nature of his quirk. He calls the class little listeners, just like on his radio show. Don't even get him started on Put Your Hands Up radio. He used to listen to it with Kachan when they were kids. It was how Kachan and him bonded. He still listens to it to this day and loves it just as much. Welcome to Hello Hotline. How can I help you? The upbeat yet soft voice speaks through the phone. Tell my mom I said I love her on the radio, please. Maybe his mom will hear it from heaven. He won't be able to tell her when he goes to hell for being quirkless. Because, goodness gracious, because God just hates the quirkless, doesn't he? Or at least just him. Izuku shakes himself from his recollection of the past. He never gave his name, so present Mike most likely doesn't remember him. But he does. He nearly jumped that day. Izuku ducks his head down behind his teacher, trying to not look at present Mike despite him being the person he and Aizawa are approaching. Aizawa is his personal favorite teacher, despite popular opinion, and despite popular opinion, he means 99.99% of his class. He is the 1.01%. Aizawa had been there for the class through the USJ, and when Kachan got kidnapped, he lets Izuku sleep in class on the worst days and slips him licorice between classes and before or after lunch when he is sad or even just hungry. Mike and Aizawa are so much different compared to his old teachers. For one, they don't hit him. For two, they grade him fairly. For three, you get the point. They aren't a-holes. Izuku sits down in the chair across from present Mike and besides Aizawa and Midnight. Gosh, this is so awkward. Go ahead and eat it while it's still hot, listener. President Mike smiles down at him from his seat ahead of him, taking a bite out of his own bento, which included the same contents as Izuku's bento. Had President Mike made this for him? He just figured it was from Lunch Rush, but now that he thinks about it, Lunch Rush was supposed to be serving miso soup today at lunch. Izuku pops open the bento box, dumbfounded by the new information. He uses his chopsticks to drag the chicken to the main meal section of the bento and mixes the contents together. He takes a few bites, spacing out slightly. President Mike is a surprisingly good cook. The food is well cooked and seasoned. It's really good. Thank you. Izuku takes another mouthful, grabbing the jelly pouch to wash it down. No problem, listener. President Mike stands up and ruffles his hair, moving towards the lounge's kitchen to refill his teacup. Izuku leans into the touch briefly, opening the jelly pouch to take a long sip. Oh, Izuku is drowning. Green sludge fills his lungs as he struggles and claws away at the liquid. He feels it trailing down his throat. It's only going to take 45 seconds, then it'll all be over. You won't feel a thing. His menacing voice rings in his mind over and over and over again. He tastes blood. The oxygen is sucked out of his lungs. He's drowning. The crew is undulating and trying to take him over. His limbs still the longer he struggles. The world kept getting dimmer. Darkness lines his eyesight. Limbs becoming lead. Everything begins to blur. There's a constant ringing in his ears. The copper taste of blood mixes unpleasantly with the sludge. Wait, blood? Isn't he? He's screaming, he realizes. Breathe, kid. Remember your 5 senses. A familiar voice breaks through his vision. Who is it? His 5 senses. He tastes pennies. He is biting his lip tightly, causing blood to drip out of the ripped skin on it. He feels sludge dripping down his throat. His body is presumably getting taken over. He hears the constant blaring of an alarm. He's dying. He sees black. Everything's blurry. He smells green apple? Izuku squeezes his eyes tight, then opens them. Izuku's on the floor, leaning against his chair. President Mike and Aizawa-sensei are kneeling in front of him. Aizawa is holding Izuku's hand to his chest, asking Izuku to mimic his breathing pattern, while President Mike is squeezing his other hand lightly, trying to ground the smaller boy. Midnight is cleaning up the rice and chicken he spilled in his panic, throwing over worried glances as she does so. Hound Dog is keeping his distance, yet is spilling reassurances from afar. Vlad is standing stiff, still in the same exact spot he was in before Izuku's episode. Izuku's gaze flicks towards everyone in the room, lingering on the 2 standing in front of him. He untangles his grip on President Mike's hand slightly, senses slowly coming back to him. It's all right, listener. You're in UA High School. You're in the staff lounge. There's pro heroes here, and you're safe. President Mike reassures him, carefully, squeezing his hand briefly. Izuku lets out a sob of relief, the action causing him to take a deep breath. Izuku slips his hands out of the 2 adults' grasps, curling into the fetal position and rocking back and forth rhythmically. He burrows his forehead into his knees. Aizawa taps on his shoe, which is a bit stiffer after being painted over recently. They sit in a comfortable silence after Izuku's sobs turn into sniffles. He calms down and begins to process what had just occurred. Midnight slides them a box of tissues and leaves the room along with Hound Dog and Vlad King. You all right, kid? Aizawa speaks up after a moment of hesitation. No, he's not. He is tired, scared, and embarrassed all at once. Not a good combination. I'm all right. just daydreaming, I guess. Izuku uses the back of his hand to wipe away the tears streaming down his face. Want to tell us what it was about? The black-haired man asked as Izuku. The black-haired man asks Izuku with a raised eyebrow, onyx eyes illuminating his worry. Izuku almost says no, but he could use someone to talk to. I was attacked, but a villain made of sludge in middle school. You might have heard of it. Kachan was attacked by it too. It was on the news. Izuku pauses his explanation to sniffle. Just thick slime like foods or drinks make me uncomfortable. Izuku doesn't want to look up. He's afraid of any judgment he might find in their expressions. You're a hero in training, Izuku. How the frick did you manage to get attacked by a villain? I'm disappointed. His dad slurs out between heaving breaths. No, that was his father. That was Hisashi talking. These two are different, right? Izuku looks up, wanting to trust his teachers. Was it reported? President Mike asks gently, eyebrows furrowed in concern. Izuku isn't exactly sure. He thinks All Might just completely neglected his job as a hero. I don't think so. And wow, he hasn't seen Aizawa Sensei so angry since the USJ. And since he has never seen President Mike mad, Izuku feels a bit nervous himself. All Might didn't get to do it, I don't think. All Might saved you? Izuku watches as Aizawa's fist clench and President Mike's teeth clench slightly. It's not a big deal. Plus, he was quirkless at the time. He doesn't exactly matter. The two men take a deep breath, bodies untensing if only slightly. We will get more details about that later. For now, I think you should lay down and get some rest. You're excused from classes for the rest of the school day. We should get back to the dorms, problem child. Aizawa stands up slowly, knees popping as he does so, making sure he telegraphs his movements for the greenette. His dark-haired teacher helps President Mike up before they both offer their hands out to Izuku. The smaller boy hesitates for a split second before taking both offered hands. Izuku is helped to his feet. He smiles shakily at the pair before walking tucked between them towards the staff room exit door. Unfortunately, President Mike is forced to return to class as lunch comes to an end. They part ways with a heartwarming hug, small thank yous, and waves. After President Mike is gone, Izuku and Aizawa make their way to the dormitories. Around 5 minutes of walking in comfortable silence, they finally arrive at the dorms. Izuku is so frickin' tired. He can't help but faceplant into the soft cushions of the common room's couch. Aizawa snorts and throws a blanket on top of the kid. The man pauses in front of the kid before seemingly making a decision. Wait here. Aizawa heads upstairs, presumably to his dorm room. Izuku is half asleep when Aizawa returns, but he's snapped to a more awake state, not expecting 4 cats to be dropped on top of him. He blinks once, then twice, then succumbs to his fate of being buried in cats. Good night, problem child. Aizawa makes his way towards the exit door to get back to UA before his next class starts. Night, Dad, Izuku slurs out in his sleepy state. Yeah, a frickin' bad day. Izuku wakes up at the late hour of 1 in the morning. The cats are still asleep, curled up against his sides and chest, yet he doesn't want to stay in the common rooms. He sits up and stretches before gathering the cats in his arms. He makes his way up the stairs, getting lost in the dark, wandering around for at least 5 minutes. He hears footsteps and holds the cats closer. Then he makes eye contact with Tokoyami. Good morning. And that's the end of chapter 1. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to drink your water, and eat your meals. Have a great day or night.